right now. Pittsburgh's best sports show is about to begin. Call us or tweet us. We've got things to talk about on the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call.
All right, thanks a lot, Jess, and thank you for tuning into the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. We are taking your phone calls tonight at 412-575-2600. And I'll be with Chris Adamski. He's over in Studio A right now. He'll be joining me to co-host this show here tonight, talking a little bit about the Steelers and Art Rooney II and what he had to say today. You know, Chris, I don't think anything was too surprising. I mean, Mr. Rooney really doesn't give too much away all the time, but, you know, what was a little surprising to me is basically he said they need better play at the quarterback position, and basically they need to start winning. There's a sense of urgency, and his patience are wearing thin. So that's the most you'll kind of get out of him, and you could kind of feel that there is some frustration, but I think that's why it's so important to get the right hire here for offensive coordinator.
Yeah, usually Mr. Rooney's very optimistic, very sort of that there's any problems or anything like that. He sort of says, we're in a good spot here. We made the playoffs, this and that. So that was sort of, I don't say eyebrow raising because, I think anybody, it's the point where I always say, like, I've gotten sick of people talking about both the non-losing season streak and the non-playoff win streak. I wish some year they just go 8-9 and win a playoff game so both sides can decide not have to hang on that anymore, because I feel like I hear both those things every single day from whether you're defending or sort of criticizing the Steelers. It was sort of notable that Art Rooney said about the patience. Patience is sort of running thin here when you get the 7 years without a playoff win. The fact that he sort of said that it was amazing to kind of see, I'm paraphrasing, what the Steelers can look like when they get good quarterback play, referencing the last 4 games, including the playoffs, when Mason Rudolph took over, is sort of a damning statement on Kenny Pickett and its own sort of a tacitly, or at least backhandedly there. Rooney was very, very sort of the same as Mike Tomlin in terms of backing Kenny Pickett and still calling him and saying this is a big year for him. So the organization, I think, has been pretty clear publicly for sure that Kenny Pickett is still their franchise quarterback going forward. Although, the reality of the fifth-year option after this next season would mean this is definitely a big year for him, and it kind of has to be, right?
But, Chris, is it? I mean, when you're reading between the lines, they say that he is their quarterback, but it's going to be a competition. So in my mind, it's a competition no matter who they bring in here. Because they're obviously not sold on Kenny Pickett. We talked about this last night on the Showdown a little bit, because if they were, he would have been the starter in Baltimore no matter what, right? If he was their franchise guy, they're going to go back to him.
Yeah, it's really, it's just common sense, right? They had a must-win game at the end of the season. You could almost say 2, depending on the Seattle situation, how healthy he was and all that. I think if that was Ben Roethlisberger and he was coming back from injury and didn't have the practice time, he would have played in Seattle. I'm talking Ben Roethlisberger in his prime, or your franchise quarterback. Just throwing any franchise quarterback in there. So you pretty much had 3 must-win games, one of them a playoff game, and you didn't start the guy who you're calling your franchise quarterback, right? It's not like we're breaking any news here saying that that's not an ideal situation. It wasn't an overall vote of confidence for him. But it has been notable, I think, and interesting to point out that the 2 most important people in the organization, being Art Rooney and Mike Tomlin, both were pretty strong in saying that Kenny Pickett, they still believe in him and they're back him. I know they kind of have to say that, but I think they both could have, in their own way, said, Mason Rudolph, maybe he is our guy. We're going to put these 2, and we hope we can bring. It was more like we can bring Mason Rudolph back, more so than to saying we're going to do everything we can to bring Mason Rudolph back, and we're going to see if he can be our starter or Kenny Pickett, and let the best man win. So I still think they've been that, and maybe it is the free agency of Mason Rudolph that there is an unknown there, but they've been pretty strongly in Kenny Pickett's corner so far.
They have, and the one thing Rooney said today, one of the biggest things they need is quality at the quarterback position, and he added to that by saying that Rudolph showed what they're capable of on offense when Rudolph is under center. I think that's very telling right there. Maybe he didn't mean to knock Kenny Pickett, but I feel like you're in the locker room maybe more than I am. We're there every single day. Don't you feel like the team, I don't want to start controversy, but it seems like the players want Mason Rudolph too?
Yeah, I mean, I think I said this last night in the show too. Like, I mean, it's just, you kind of have to pull your wool over your eyes to not think that the offense, those last 4 games, including the playoffs, and I know one of them was in a rainstorm, one of them was in a blizzard, or it wasn't in the blizzard, but you still had conditions there, that the offense just looked completely different. Now, you can say maybe that it was the post-Matt Canada. I guess you can't say with certainty that wasn't the problem, because you had two games in the middle there where Mitch Trubisky was the starter. And I think we all accept now, everybody can kind of admit or say, for better or for worse, of all due respect to Mitch Trubisky, that he's a step below those other two right now. But it's just to me, like, I think you're really trying to do some mental gymnastics here to say that Mason Rudolph didn't perform that much better. The offense didn't perform that much better. And if you're Deontay Johnson or George Pickens or whoever it is on the offense, and you're actually scoring a lot more points and making big plays and sort of not having to do that thing where you're winning games 13-10 and having to get a fourth quarter drive, they're not dumb, right? I mean, they're in there. I think that whether they're surprised by it or not, I mean, Mason's been around, of course, in the locker room for a long time. You had to feel that in the huddle, because we feel it, whether you're watching on TV or watching from the press box or the sideline.
I have to believe, and I think they will, and I think they have a good shot at it, and I know they want to, if they sign Mason Rudolph, that it'll definitely be a competition, I think. I mean, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, and I got to take a break. But, Chris, I mean, you want to win. Tomlin's in this job to win football games, so you're obviously going to put the best quarterback out there, no matter if it's a first-round draft pick or a third-round draft pick. But this is our GMC tweet of the night. It's from Duquesne Football. Welcome to the Duquesne Athletics Hall of Fame. Christian Kuntz, 3-time All-American, 3 NEC conference titles, 30.5 sacks, program record. He was an all-star linebacker for the Duquesne Dukes, and 71.5 TFL, tackles for loss, 6th NCAA FS.
Richie, one of my favorite things is how Christian Kuntz had more sacks as a college player than TJ Watt did. He likes to remind him of that. It's kind of funny. I like it, though.
He was originally in the Steelers camp as a linebacker.
He was, and he had a sack in a preseason game down in Carolina, and he kind of bounced around there a little bit until he switched to the long snapper for the XFL, not the original XFL, the second XFL. And then it's a good story.
It's a great story. It's a great story. I'm happy for a local kid and seeing him do this right now. All right, let's go to Matt out in Butler, who's our number 1 Cochrane Go One Better call of the night. What's up, Matt?
Hey, guys. Quick question. 2 of them. Everything you've said about the quarterback situation, I would totally agree with. But why would Mason Rudolph return? He was given a fair chance last year to compete. Open competition. They rated him as 3rd, for goodness sake.
Matt, I can answer this pretty easily. I don't want to cut you off here, but the biggest reason I think Mason Rudolph would want to return here is I think this is his best chance to become a starter. You might disagree with me here, Chris, but if he thinks he's better than Kenny Pickett, Kenny Pickett's injury prone, this is a perfect situation. I mean, you can name other destinations, Washington. Why would someone else want to give him a shot at being a starter? I think anywhere else he would go to be a backup behind someone, right? And you don't know if you're better than that person or going to get a shot. At least now you prove yourself for 4 games, and maybe you won't get a fair shake in camp, but at some point it's about winning. And Mike Tomlin's going to put his best quarterback out there.
Yeah, it probably says something about the Steelers situation at quarterback that when I say this, and I don't mean this, it's probably going to come across worse, that I don't know, there's probably no other team where he will. You're right, Reggie, to have or be named the starter, right? The best chance he would probably have, if there's maybe a team who's drafting a rookie quarterback and needs him to develop a little bit, sort of like Gardner Minshew did this past year. But even then, the Colts started Anthony Richardson. Nowadays, if you're a first-round pick at quarterback, you're pretty much starting right away. I know the Steelers didn't do that with Mitch Trubisky, but even if you get in that situation, those guys are meant to be benched at some point. If they aren't, there's something wrong with the team, the guy they drafted. So, Richie, you talked about earlier, Mason Rudolph has this locker room right now to a point for sure. He knows the team. He knows the system. And again, this might sound bad too, the way I say it, but he also knows he can beat, I think he knows or he believes he can beat out Kenny Pickett. And there's reason to believe that he can. So it probably is a good situation. Yeah, the 2 summers ago was certainly not a competition, or at least not to Mason Rudolph's benefit, or he's never going to be picked in that one. So I understand that, but I also, let's not overstate it here. Hey, I've been talking as much about Mason Mason Rudolph than anybody, and I believe in what he did those 4 games. But let's not get ahead of ourselves here. He's going to have all these opportunities to start all across the league. It's just not going to happen.
There's not many opportunities out there. Washington, maybe what happens in Chicago, but they're going to draft a guy too, right? I mean, Carolina has Young. I mean, there's guys out there, but where are you going to go? And you're familiar with this offense. You're familiar with the team. And I think you know that you're better than Pickett, and the fact that he gets hurt all the time. So you're going to have your opportunity here. I think this is the best fit for him. I mean, but I'm not saying that he is going to be the Steelers franchise quarterback. I'm not saying that at all, but I think he's their best option right now, unless Kenny Pickett proves us all wrong.
It really is, considering that, and it's not without merit to say the organization is going to kind of give Kenny Pickett one last shot here.
They have to.
Yeah. So there's reason to do that. So if in that light, like we talked about a little bit last night, I think in the showdown, where like a Kirk Cousins type, there's no reason to bring him in. If you're still getting a look at Kenny Pickett, Kirk Cousins is not coming here to compete. You're not going to pay Kirk Cousins to come here to compete. So you need a guy who's kind of a second-tier type guy anyway. I think it's just it makes too much sense for the Steelers and for Mason Rudolph for this marriage not to continue, even though it's been sort of a rocky marriage up to this point, at least in terms of, in terms of getting chances. And Mason Rudolph thought he was going to sell insurance or whatever it was last year at some point. But this would be the 4th contract to be on with the Steelers if he agrees to another one. And maybe at some point here, you end up with a situation where, you're right, Rich, I'm not ready to anoint him a franchise quarterback or the Steelers franchise quarterback of the future, but you have at least one more year then to decide about Kenny Pickett, and you can kind of decide about Mason Rudolph. And if it doesn't work out, and it's probably odds are better than not that it might not, then in 2025, that's when you go into the draft and try it all again and find your next guy.
I don't know if there's a better situation out there for a backup quarterback either. If you're looking around, I mean, like you said, you brought up Cousins. He's going to want to be a starter. Russell Wilson, I mean, are you going to bring him in? He's been awful. He's obviously going to want to be a starter. And then everyone else is second tier. I think might not even be as good as Mason Rudolph. Let's go out to Tom and Jeanette. How you doing, Tom?
I'm good, guys. Hey, I got a question for you, too. Rooney made a comment today that Tomlin is able to keep the interest of the players throughout the course of the season.
Yeah,
here's
the
my
20-year-olds.
question.
Yeah.
Did it look to you like Deontay Johnson was interested in that Bengals game? And did it look like Pickens was interested in that
look, you can point. Yeah, Tom, I get your call and everything. You look at points in years where these receivers are frustrated. I mean, right, Chris? Receivers are divas. They want the ball all the time, and they're frustrated. And it takes a guy like Tomlin to rein him in. And I think a lot of other coaches maybe couldn't do that. Yeah, Deontay Johnson was definitely frustrated at points. They want the ball. They were also frustrated. This offense was only scoring 13 points a game, and they were getting 2 targets, too. So I think they have a right to be frustrated, and they should be. I think that's what you want to see out of them.
Yeah, I certainly understand the call, and I understand the criticism of that with the Deontay Johnson and the George Pickens, and I understand where they're coming from. People that say that, fans that say that, the frustration with those sort of displays of frustration from some of the Steelers players and why that doesn't reflect well on Mike Tomlin. I think Mike Tomlin knows that doesn't reflect well on him either. But I would counter to say all the things you said, Rich, about receivers and being frustrated, and kind of our earlier discussion about the quarterbacks and why that frustration's there. And I think they were engaged down the stretch in those 3-game winning streak and in the playoff game. And I think you saw some of that too. I don't think there's this big, I know that was a big topic of conversation midway through the season or 2/3 of the way through the season about, a culture problem in the locker room. I don't really see that. Yeah. I do understand Art Rooney's point about Mike Tomlin. I don't think he's lost the locker room. I think he still has the ear of the players. And I think you see that almost every day when he's in the locker room with them, on the practice field with them.
Well, we were in the locker room in Baltimore, and I didn't see any of this frustration, Chris, when we were talking to the players when Mason Rudolph was the quarterback. And I'm going to point out this, specifically George Pickens, because, he's been the center of this. I talked to him after the Baltimore game. He had 0 targets, right? 0 catches. Yeah. And if anyone wants to be frustrated, it would be him after a game like that, and he wasn't. He was a team player. I just felt like I felt like you lost all that drama when Mason Rudolph was the quarterback and this offense was clicking. Steve out in the north side. How you doing, Steve? We don't have a lot of time.
Pretty good. I think Kenny Pickett should be your starter quarterback. He won 7 games for the Steelers before he got injured.
Yeah, did you look at his stats? His stats are like all-time worse. How about the eye test? The guy gets out of the pocket in a matter of a half a second. Go ahead, I'll let you finish that one, Chris.
If you talk to me, and I'll be the first one to say it, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I think when we're talking in early September and late August there, before the season started, after the preseason and after the finish of last season, you see all these things you like about Kenny Pickett. You see the intangibles. You see a lot of I think he had the locker room at that point. And, there's a reason why he's a first-round pick. There's a reason why he led Pitt to an ACC title and everything like that. There's a lot of things you still like, but for whatever reason, it's just like, it seems to fall apart this year. Maybe give him Mulligan, but he's still young. But, yeah, it's definitely time in 2024 for Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I mean, he has moxie. I like the desire to be a winner. A lot of people have that. He has the intangibles that Rooney talked about. But, stats don't lie. The eye test doesn't lie. The way the locker room feels and the way you see and perceive that offense, it just felt a lot different and a lot better with Mason Rudolph. Back out to the phone lines. We got Chuck out in Uniontown. How you doing, Chuck?
Yeah. Who's going to win the Super Bowl and why?
All right, that's a good question. We talked a little bit about this yesterday on the Showdown. I like Kansas City, and I like Kansas City for one reason. Number 15. Maybe number 15 to number 87. Patrick Mahomes, the Travis Kelce. I think the place is going to go crazy. Everyone's going to be loving Taylor Swift. It's going to be it's theater, right? It's a good show. It's a good performance. And if you're going by the script, Chris, this is what happens, right? Taylor Swift wins a Super Bowl.
I know. It's crazy how the Chiefs were sort of like, for being as good as they've been the past half decade, they were underexposed. They played a small market. Now they're sort of getting overexposed, and there's people kind of turning on them. But, yeah, until somebody beats them, I might pick the Chiefs every year now until something changes my mind. Seeing what they did in the AFC playoffs so far, it's amazing how I was just talking on Christmas Day, they were losing to the Raiders, getting blown out, and I thought they were done for the season. And here they are, right back again where they've always been, and might be a third Super Bowl in 5 years.
Yeah, no receivers. Patrick Mahomes can win a game by himself. Obviously, he has Travis Kelce there, but I think because of him, they win this game. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of talent and a good offensive scheme over in San Francisco, but I think the most talented person on the field that day is Patrick Mahomes, and I like Kansas City. Hey, thanks a lot, Chris. We'll see you soon. And thank you for tuning in to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. Hopefully, we see you over on KDKA News in a couple minutes.